Hello, welcome to another educational video for CSCI 1300. My name is Ioana Fleming. Today we're going to talk about nested branches. We have already talked about the first conditional statements, the if statements, right? Where a condition is evaluated and based on whether that condition is true or false, a certain group of statements in your code is executed. So we have arrived at a point in our learning about programming where not every statement of your code solution will be executed. With nested branches, instead of having just one condition, just one if statement, we're basically going to have to evaluate multiple conditions. Let's work through an example. Let's say we are trying to compute the tax rate, the amount of tax someone has to pay in the United States. The first thing that matters in this calculation is whether the person is single or married. What is their status, right? If they are single, let's look here at the table. If they are single, then the next thing we need to determine is how big is their taxable income. If it's less than or equal, or at most, $32,000, then their tax rate is 10% of that amount, the amount over zero, which is that amount. If somebody made $20,000, those $20,000 are above zero and they will be taxed 10%. If somebody has an income above $32,000, then they would pay first $3,200, which is 10% of this single limit rate, right? Single limit amount, so $3,200 plus 25% of anything exceeding $32,000. If instead of being single they are married, then we don't use these values, but instead we compare their taxable income with $64,000. One of the ways to picture this is through a flowchart. So let's look at the flowchart. Figure out how do we set up our conditions for this program. Now the diamond represents the condition. So as we come into our program, whether we had something before or not, the first thing we're going to need to write here is the condition about the status of the taxpayer. Are they single? If yes, then we're going to go on this branch of the program. If they are not single, then the condition, are they single, is false, and we'll execute a totally different part of our program. So this is an either or. Either this part is executed or this part is executed. Let's go with true. Let's say the status would be single. Then the next condition according to our table is to check how big their taxable income is. If their taxable income is less than $32,000, this is the condition. If this condition evaluates to true, then they're in the 10% bracket. We know how to compute their tax. If they're above $32,000, then that means this condition is false and they would fall under the rules for the 25% bracket. If they are married, we're going to execute this part. It looks pretty similar. The difference is that here the income will be compared to the value of $64,000. I have a question for you. For this particular program, how many conditions are going to be evaluated? Every time this program runs, how many conditions will there be a need to be evaluated? I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. The flowchart should be helpful. We said that every diamond represents a condition. If we count our diamonds, we notice we have 3 diamonds. But the question I ask is how many of these conditions will be evaluated. So let's go from the beginning. This is the first condition. This will always be evaluated. This is our condition number 1. Now, based on the outcome of this condition, we either go this way or we go on this branch. If we go on the true branch, we have a second condition being evaluated, and after one of these branches is taken, follow the program execution. We end up afterwards. We end up at the end. Our program either ends or does something different that does not require you to know the, status or the income, right? So if we go on this branch, we have 1, 2 conditions. If we go on this branch, we have 1, 2 conditions as well. So even though our program sets up 3 conditions, 3 if statements, our execution will only go through 2 conditions, 1, 2 or 1, 2. Let's take a look at the solution. I set this up in VS Code for you. Okay, let's take a look right here. From the beginning, first, we're going to set out all these rates and values that we're going to need for our conditions and for our calculations as constants. That's the 10% for the 10% rate bracket. That's a 25%. That is the limit if the status is single. This is the limit if the status is not single. All of them have been set up as doubles, even though these two could have probably been integers. If in the future our tax code changes, all we would need to change is the percent rates here for the brackets and maybe the limits if they change. Our final result is going to be in these variables, tax 1 or tax 2. Let's figure out which one. Initially, we need to ask the user to enter their income. We will capture that value in the variable named income here with CN. Then we need to ask them to enter their status, S for single, M for married. We will capture that in this string variable named marital status. Now, here is our flowchart. First things first, first condition, if marital status is single. If this evaluates to true, then we know that we're going on this branch and we need to write our second condition. This is everything here between these curly braces is this arrow, this part of the code, right? And then we'll say if the income is less than or equal to $32,000, then the tax value will be 10% times the income. Otherwise, if they make more than $32,000, this is the $3,200 plus basically 25% times the rest. So we'll see how we will calculate. Same thing here in the X bracket for married. Here is the condition here for the married limit, which is $64,000. This is the 10% bracket. This is the 25% bracket. At the end, the total tax will add tax 1 plus tax 2, right? Because if we are in the else branches, if we are in the if branches, the tax 2 will be 0. So the addition will be a good idea. And then we can print out the results. We'll come back in another video to walk through this program, debug it, see how our variables change, and see how the flow of execution moves from branch to branch. Thank you for your attention.